Hello, friends, both old and new. This is John St. Baptiste, or Djinn St. Baptiste, and Amy, truer than true. And we're here to discuss American Gods, Season 2, Episode 3, which came out on Sunday night. On this Wednesday, which is a most fortuitous day. Thank you all for joining us. Amy, would you like to point out who's in the chat today?
Oh, well, when it comes back up, it's just disappeared. Hang on.
Sorry for being a bit late. We are having technical issues because I'm a Luddite. As Johnny has pointed out once or twice, I am actually undead. I've been around for a little while. And yeah, computers and I have a little trouble, especially with Technical Boy getting involved with everything.
So we've got, who's in the chat? We've got Bronhaller, Johnny B. Crazy, Peter Griffin, Imagination Realm. I'm sure I saw somebody else. Oh, Maura Lee and Forest Blurters just joined. I think that's it for now, but hopefully we'll get a few more. I've put the new link in Geek Chat and in the event, so if there's anybody that was on the other one, feel free to share the link around of the new one.
Please, and thank you all for joining us. Actually, there will be we'll talk about that in a little bit. But a couple of announcements to make about this channel and some directions that we'll be going with these episodes. But speaking of episodes, we should probably start in on this one. So, Amy, what was your take on the very beginning of this episode?
So yeah, right at the beginning, it was kind of leaving off what we saw at the end of the last one. We saw the flames in Wednesday's eyes, and now we've got a close-up of the flames. I don't know if anyone else caught it, but it did very briefly turn into the shape of a horse's head, and you could see the nose. I did get a picture of it, but everyone knows what a horse looks like. And the advantage of watching with subtitles, it actually pops up what Mr. Wednesday is actually saying in the background. So he's repeating bits of his little speech at the end of the last episode. You hear him say, a berserker, be proud, Valhalla, and Betty the Barbarian. And it repeats those a couple of times. And as that's going on, we see the car kind of reforming. So I did think that the car was going to come back after last week, but I thought it would come back in another form, not just as another car, which I thought was a bit of an odd one. Like, I'm rubbish with cars, though I don't know if it was the same car or like a newer model of the car. If anybody does know that, feel free to tell me in the chat. But yeah,
I believe it was the same model.
So just like a refreshed version rather than a change. And you can hear horse noises and car noises kind of overlapping each other in the background. If you listen carefully, the sort of neighing and hooves and then an engine revving.
Yeah, which kind of puts a little hole in my theory, because I thought he was talking about a Walkyrie. And maybe he is. Maybe that is Sleipnir. Yeah.
Or it could be. I mean, it does. It says a berserker. I mean, and barbarian. It could be. It could be a different incarnation of it. I'm not sure if they'll sort of go any further with how they've done that, but Betty the Barbarian can take a beating and keep on ticking. From Peter Griffin. Oh, Bobby's in the chat as well.
Bobby.
Yeah.
Handmade by Bobbi.
Oh, and Catherine Harding popped in. She said she was just popping in to say hi. I'm not sure if she's gone again, but she says you look rad today, John.
I try. I have my Geneva Jacuzzi t-shirt on. Always about sponsoring small musicians. Really cool artist. I saw her open last fall for Love and Rockets. And she's an avant-garde single artist. Just check her website out if you get the opportunity. Really cool stuff. We'll get into checking websites out in a little bit because likes and shares and all those things are so important to this episode, aren't they?
Peter Griffin says in the chat he thinks it's Sleep Near the Eight-Legged Horse. And Imagination Realm says when he left it in front of the train, he was invoking a berserker. Maybe the train's the berserker.
Yeah, I can see that. We get right into the wreckage of the train, which this show is so visually genius.
It is. I mean, you wouldn't expect a car to have so thoroughly destroyed the train. I can see it possibly being derailed by a car, but you would think generally it would kind of just plough through it really, and the car would be pushed off to the side and the train would just carry on. But this isn't a normal car, so it could just be because it's a lot more it's stronger essentially, so it's almost like the car's hit back.
Almost whether it's Sleipnir or a Walker or whatever, like almost like the car is a deity in and of itself.
Yeah, and it's sort of in its own right.
Like a avatar.
And sort of the destruction of the train is kind of like could be the sacrifice that resurrected it. I don't think there was anyone else left alive on the train apart from Mr. Town that we saw, because we never saw him die. We didn't see anyone else in the wreckage. I'm pretty sure we'll probably see Mr. Town again. I don't think he's done. I don't think they'd have just have him kind of run off screen and not come back. I think if he's dead, they'd have shown his death.
It'd be a waste of good actor if he's dead. Because did you get the opportunity in the past week to watch any of those commercials we were talking about?
No.
Okay.
Busy week, but
it's just they're very funny, and I don't believe I've ever seen the actor in anything but those commercials and the show. But
I certainly didn't recognize him from anything. So
yeah, I don't even think you have that insurance company over there.
Probably not.
But
it was Bron Haller in the chat. She's brilliant at this. She certainly knows her mythology stuff. She said the idea of invoking the berserker rage is so you cause more damage and take less of it yourself. So yeah, that totally makes sense how one small car could wreck a whole train. And Shadow looked like he was floating in water. I think that's kind of representative that he's probably unconscious and this is his unconscious mind. And then we've got him climbing a wall of skulls, which I think was the first episode of season 1.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if one goes back to the books, he keeps having that repetitive dream about climbing the skulls and discovers that the skulls are actually his skull, like over and over again. It very much feeds into the idea of reincarnation.
Yeah. I'm not sure what the water's supposed to symbolize, unless it is like being reborn and that's supposed to be sort of in the womb and then climbing the skulls to be reborn. It could be that. I mean, it would make sense that the train crash would have killed him. The fact that his arms are still attached to his body is quite a feat. Because you saw he still had the metal things, at least on one of his arms. I saw it. I didn't see if it was on the other one, but from how firmly he was strapped into all that machine, you'd expect him to break.
He plays the weakness really well. I love that they're in so much telly, like somebody comes from this big like body shattering type of thing, and then they would just walk away, and everything calm and dandy. Like the entire episode, you can tell he's in pain. He's hurting. He's suffering. Like when he falls down.
Yeah, he's bleeding and he's sweating and he's limping. He genuinely does
the
look
well
hurt.
in a second, but the well is
Mm-hmm.
very important.
Yeah, and he's calling for Laura. The brief scene between Laura and Wednesday and Mad Sweeney, it was quite funny. The Humpty Dumpty reference. He's just so dismissive of her. He goes, pick up the arms and the talky bits. Like the talky bits is the nice way of putting it, because she's obviously saying she wants to find Shadow, and when he picks up her legs, he goes, "I've always been a leg man myself." And then they just chuck her in the boot of the car, the trunk for pretty much everybody else who's in here. I'll call it the boot, but it's not.
See, I'm weird because of my upbringing. Like I have certain Anglicisms, but then other ones I don't have. Like I drive my car and put it in the car park. But I put things in the trunk.
Put things in the trunk, not in the boot. Yeah, see, a trunk would be like a chest. Not part of the car.
There's something that I think we're going to get in a couple seasons about something being in the trunk. Okay. I mean, I just think that might happen.
And where did I get to? Oh, she sees Shadow's glow just as they're closing the trunk, the back end of the car. I've explained now. You know, I mean, it's a boot, so it's fine. Yeah, just as they're closing it, you obviously you see the glow, and I assume that she couldn't see it before because Shadow was unconscious, maybe. And that's sort of when we've seen all in the water and then climbing the skulls, and it's only when he wakes up that the light is apparent again.
You know, in view to your point, maybe he wasn't unconscious. Maybe he really was dead for a bit.
He could have been. I did think that, especially when you saying about the skulls and them being part of a resurrection. Yeah, it could be. Because something we'll probably get into in a bit, but later on when he hears Muninn speak, and I wondered if that was some sort of power thing, possibly, or it could be just that they wanted him to hear him speak. But I did wonder if that was some sort of godlike power that he can understand the raven.
Yeah, and Odin's pretty dismissive of his ravens.
He is. Poor birdie.
I like corvids. I'm a big corvid fan.
I do. It sounds really gross, but I've got quite a few corvid skulls, which probably sounds really awful to most people. I didn't kill them or anything, though. It's just I like them, so I collect them. So there's a bit more stuff before we get to that scene, though. And Mad Sweeney actually questions them leaving Shadow behind, which I was surprised by because he doesn't really like him. Does he? He's sort of not really happy about him. There seems to be almost a rivalry there. I think I mentioned that in the first episode, how iffy they are with each other over Laura.
For me, I think it's guilt.
It could be. Yeah.
I think it's guilt. He knows he totally fracked this guy's life. Like, and doesn't want to see it every day. Doesn't want to deal with it every day.
Yeah, perhaps it's sort of. Yeah, can't face him because he knows kind of his involvement. Could be. And Wednesday says, am I the only one who has faith in Shadow? Well, we know he's not, because Laura does.
Oh.
I suppose. Or does she? Are believing and having faith the same thing?
Well, and do you think how right? Well, oh God, that's a little further down. But Wednesday's assessment of Laura, we have to look at that in a wee bit.
Yeah.
By the way, that gets to so starting next week, what we're going to do is with these episodes, we're going to do a hour or less stream, just going through the episode, and then we'll put up a link. If you really want to go in depth, then we'll sit there and talk about the really in-depth stuff afterwards, because some people only have like about an hour of time, want to discuss the episode and then, you know, go do their thing. But if you, so starting next week, we'll be doing that. Also, outside of people who are Cylons, I am giving out one and only one spanner. So please, in the chat or in the comments, if you're watching this afterwards, tell me why you should have the one spanner to rule them all. And if you win that contest, you get the one spanner. If you don't win that contest, don't be offended. It's just the best argument. Give me your best sales pitch.
Yeah, have an argument. That'll be great. Argue in the chat. We'll just sit back and watch.
I'll throw on my mustache a bit, like I do on Friday nights.
Oh, I've got nothing to do. I can twiddle my hair. That doesn't really look like I'm thinking of anything. I'll do a pondering face. Yeah, it's that conversation in the car. He's saying that he has faith in Shadow. And in the previous season, he needed Shadow to have faith in him more, I think. He needed Shadow to believe in him. And he didn't really until the final episode. And that was when Wednesday revealed who he really is. So I wonder if him believing in Shadow as such is kind of like Shadow needing believers in order to come into his power properly. Because I don't think many, if any, other people know who Shadow really is. Like, obviously Wednesday knows.
Right.
Possibly Mr. World knows, but I don't think he would tell anybody because it suits the current state of affairs for him to keep that to himself. So until more people are aware and believe in him, he probably won't really have any real obvious kind of power. Well, there's the thing with making it snow, but I think that was more to prove it to himself. They wanted to prove it to him, not to anyone else, because that scene's only like between him and Wednesday. I think Mr. Town mentioned it last episode.
Oh, he did. Yeah, he did. A man looks into a cup of hot chocolate with his marshmallows, and he thinks of snow, and it snows.
So they kind of know. And then it's the quickest way to get where he's going is sometimes the longest. So it's kind of the journey itself is important in this, rather than just getting him to Mr. Ibis. I think part of it is Wednesday wants to see what he does. Some of it seems like it's just out of interest, just to see how he'll react, rather than it having any particular anything in particular that it will do for Shadow. It's more like Wednesday wanting to see how he'll react to the situation for his own, I don't know, amusement or something. Oh God, the chat's going crazy now. Oh.
Yes, it is. Peter Griffin points out that last week I did give a spoiler. This is a spoiler-heavy show, so just fair warning. Here there be dragons. We will talk about the book. We will talk about the end game. And the differences between the book and the show. Actually, the after show that we're going to be starting next week will, in a lot of ways, focus on the differences between the book and the show, and maybe make the first stream a little less spoilery. But we've kind of jumped off the deep end with that one.
Yeah, Mandolin and Imagination Realm. I feel a bit bad for them because they don't quite. I think they're saying they haven't read the books, and I like how their minds are working, but I get a feeling we might inadvertently spoil something. It's like Laura and Shadow seem like gods in the making. Why the flies? I feel like it's more than her death.
Ooh, I haven't thought about that.
No, I'd not thought of that either.
Because there are a lot of connotations there.
Yeah. Oh, that's got my brain churning. I don't know how we can sort of talk about some of the stuff without spoiling it, but
just be aware that spoilers will happen.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard not to.
But although, because it's diverging quite a bit from the books now, even knowing who certain people really are, doesn't really take anything from watching the show, I think, because they're doing something different with it. So it's
how do you now that we're a third of the way through the season, season one's already over, how do you feel about the changes they've made, like just in general? What are your...
I like it, so I wouldn't say there's anything I dislike about the changes, apart from the fact that it means there's stuff I don't know, but that's what makes you want to keep watching, isn't it? Keep you guessing. I actually quite like how they've made Laura a bigger character. It works in the show. What they're doing with it, definitely, it works well, and I like her, how she's sort of relating to the other characters. Her relationship with Mad Sweeney, that's really interesting, and like seeing where they're going to go with that, particularly because it seems like there might be some kind of romantic element to it, and they might be going off on their own little adventure to New Orleans at some point. How she is with Wednesday, I like sort of like the banter between them almost. They don't make any secret about the fact that they don't like each other. She doesn't trust him. He doesn't like her at all. And obviously, in this episode, we see there's like a competitive thing between them where they're both competing for Shadow. In different ways, I think. It's odd because they're not really on opposite sides as such. But the way they're competing it's like they're like jealous lovers, both trying to fight over the same person, but for different reasons. And she doesn't even know what she wants really, but because of the, Shadow's kind of the only thing that has any meaning for her at the moment. Wednesday obviously has his own plans. It's going to be quite interesting to see what they both do to try and win him over. There doesn't seem to be any indication that they could compromise so far, anyway. And I'm just trying to think. She's not really had a huge amount of time on screen with anyone else, really. Like, she didn't really interact with any of the other gods or anything. There wasn't much in the way of conversation between them or anything.
Well, she interacts with the Djinn.
But she's more with Celine, I think, isn't it?
Yeah,
She,
but
she does.
a bit with the Djinn.
There's not really sort of a huge amount of it there. I think the main thing is their interactions with Wednesday, with Baptiste, and of course with Shadow. But yeah, I do really like what they're doing with the characters so far. So I hope it doesn't all go a bit shit when
Yeah,
they get.
they're getting developed more. Like one of my few, as much as I love the book, I mean, I've probably read it at least a dozen times. Like certain characters I felt were underdeveloped, and Laura is definitely one of them. You know, the way she's presented in the book, I feel we were talking about this a bit last week. Like I feel like she's a bit of a Deus Ex Machina.
Yeah, something lacking almost in the books.
And so I like that they're giving her a character. I think another great thing they've done with the show is why and how Shadow and Laura got together in the first place. You know, because that's not really in the books. It's just like
no, it's very slightly hinted at, I think, in this episode when Wednesday says, like, you're not the girl he fell in love with anymore. So it's, you know, she wonder how different she actually is. Have you noticed she stopped calling him puppy?
Yeah.
That she was doing quite a lot, but she seems to have stopped now.
A lot of people's names have changed. But on the same note, Matt Sweeney went back to calling her dead wife.
He did, didn't he? I think he's almost saying that when he's trying to be serious, perhaps. Or I don't know. It's almost it's difficult to decide whether he's being derogatory or affectionate with it.
Right.
Because I think sometimes it's one, sometimes it's the other, sometimes it could be interpreted either way. And in that scene, I got the impression that he was only calling her that because Wednesday was there. And he perhaps doesn't want to give away that there might be something more going on between them, perhaps. So he's reverted back to that in front of Wednesday to give a different impression.
Oh, and Imagination Realm has a really good point. He told her he wasn't her puppy anymore.
Did he? I don't remember that bit.
Right.
Because the chat's actually moving quite quickly.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Imagination Realm. He did say, "I'm not your puppy anymore." And you know, names and so forth, identity. You know, I mean, when it comes down to it, I think that's a lot of what this show and the book is all about is identity. Yeah. It's why, you know, the old gods and the new gods feel like they have to be at war with one another. There's only a certain amount of belief and so forth. But that's a damn good point, Imagination Realm. Thank you.
Ron Hallis made a really good point as well. She says, thinking about the storyline, maybe Wednesday needs to test Shadow to make sure he's capable of what he has to do later. In the books, Wednesday makes a comment about trying to hide/protect him. Definitely agree with that, saying what he has to do later. which is something he did earlier in the books prior to some of the events that we've seen.
Yeah.
But I think they possibly are going to be leading up to that. And yeah, obviously Wednesday needs to be sure of him if he's going to. He has to sort of hold vigil, doesn't he? And again, I don't want to give anything away because I know there's people that haven't read the books. But
as we've said, this is spoiler heavy, and in the book and the show have diverged so much, but they, as we were saying, have diverged well.
Yeah, but I think it would be odd if we didn't get that whole death thing for.
Oh yeah,
I don't want to say
there's
it.
going to be a tree. There's going to be a tree in Virginia. It's going to happen.
Yeah, I think that's if they don't get to that by the end of this season, I think that's probably going to be season 3's main storyline.
I would say season 4's main storyline, because they're talking about 4. They're talking about trying to get 4, and I hope they do, because it's a huge story, and they're expanding on it and expounding upon it so much. I'm really hoping it's 4 seasons that they do.
Yeah, that would be good. It's just the actual that whole event in the books. I can't imagine them carrying it on for as long as it goes on in the books. Because if they do that, they're essentially going to have one of their biggest stars not really doing much of anything.
I don't know. You can watch a lot of Crispin Glover naked.
I don't think I've ever seen him naked.
Neither have I, but I'm saying there are quite a few people out there who would be all about some Crispin Glover naked.
Maybe. Not for a whole season, though.
I don't know. There are probably people who would be all over that.
I can't imagine he's got the most sort of heartthrob status in the show.
But speaking of heartthrob, so back to Mad Sweeney, he doesn't trust Wednesday, and he tells Laura outright. He's like,
he's trying to help her. Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, come on. Oh, you threw me in the trunk of a car. Wait until you see what this fucker's gonna do to you.
Yeah. And, at least with him being there, he probably did feel that he was protecting her, maybe, in some way. And he wants her to go to New Orleans. Yeah, he does genuinely want to help her. And I think originally it was just his ulterior motive of the only reason he wants to help her is to get his coin back. But it does seem like there's more to it than that now. Previously, he was very much like, fuck you, I just want my coin. And now he's not really going on about the coin. He's talking about making her alive. And then, like, the coin's the secondary thing. And it seems like he cares about a bit more than just that coin now.
And unlike Wednesday, he's telling her, if you're going to deal with Baron Samedi, like, you're going to have to pay.
Yeah.
He's
very honest, actually, isn't he? He has been very honest with her, whereas you've got other characters. They've all got their own motives and their sort of secrets and what they're up to. And he's always been completely open about, I'm sticking with you because I want my coin back. He's been open about the fact that he was working for Wednesday. He said that he told her like the reason that she was killed, and
don't
it was
trust that tree hanger. Don't trust that tree hanger.
But yeah, he's telling her the truth. He's not keeping anything from her. He's even taken her through his hoard, and I imagine that's probably the first time he's ever let anyone else in there. He wasn't 100% certain it was going to work, so I don't think he's ever travelled through it with somebody before.
And he was like,
Um,
"It's not going to be comfortable. You're not
yeah.
going to like it."
So he's very, very honest and upfront. You know, he's probably the most honest person in the whole show, really. But I like that about his character. It actually makes it more interesting because it's so different to all the other characters that he's actually kind of open about what he's up to. Just having a look what's going on in the chat because they're theorizing about who Shadow is, if he's a god. Which one is they? So, we've got Daisy. Not even going to try and pronounce your surname in the chat as well.
I think I got it right once. She said Kowalski, right? Daisy, did I get that right?
That looks like it might be accurate. But seeing as we've all heard my vague attempt at Irish pronunciations, I'm not even going to go there. So, because that was bad enough. What she said, she gets that a lot. Oh, okay. The CZ part is more like a sh, but the rest sounds good, apparently.
Okay.
You definitely did a better job than I would have done.
It's funny. My huge side note, but this is my channel. I can do whatever I want. So my ex taught ESL to Japanese students, and because of that, my Japanese pronunciation is amazing, and I have absolutely no clue what I'm saying. But I can sit and read Japanese, and like my pronunciation and enunciation are apparently off the charts, but I have no clue what's coming out of my mouth.
I had a friend who did that as well. It's, she moved to China actually, and she was teaching English to airline pilots. And like she didn't speak a word of Chinese when she moved there. And she learned just from being there, and she did that for 2 years, and then she moved to South Korea, and that's where she still lives now. So it's she doesn't teach English now, but she's doing a degree now. But yeah, it's I think they have a very different way of learning languages. Like they just completely immerse themselves in it and just don't speak any other languages while they're there. That's what she had to do. She had to speak to them in English all the time. So it's really weird how you can pick up a language.
By second year Latin, that's what we were doing. Like my Latin teacher in high school, you weren't allowed to speak English once you walked in the classroom.
Wow.
And that's why my Latin is pretty good. I don't speak it as well as I used to. I can still read it at like a 9 or a 10 level after 8 years of classes. But yeah, I speak it at about like a 6 now because I outside of going to mass, I really don't use Latin that often.
Yeah, we never had the option of doing Latin at school, unfortunately. Otherwise, I totally would have done it because it's really interesting, and obviously, it's the basis of so many other languages.
Do you know,
although I did
Latin in half of the world, I can ask where the bathroom is. I can ask where the train is. And I can ask where I can get food and how much it costs.
That's pretty good going.
Like, it's kind of all you need, right?
That's Imagination Realm is learning Italian on Duolingo at the moment. But dropped Latin. That's not going to do you any favours if you drop Latin and now you're learning Italian. But I actually, although I don't know Latin. I'd say it all. I know the odd word or like base word thing. I did actually pick up on something, which I'll mention later on when we get to that scene. But it was a bit when they were talking about Argus, Wednesday and Ibis, and I was very impressed with myself for actually knowing what it meant.
I believe it was the Imagination Realm who earlier was saying that she thinks that Shadow's mum is Liberatus.
Yeah, I can see where that may have been hinted at, because in the previous episode, when you had sort of Shadow's coming to America story, the first scene is him and his mum on a boat, and they see the Statue of Liberty, and he mentions Libertas, the goddess, and being based on that. And I have seen a few people mention that they thought that that's who his mum actually was.
Well, and there's also the reference in the book when Wednesday quotes, I think it's Robespierre. It was somebody during the French Revolution. I'm pretty sure it's Robespierre. But quotes, liberty as a whore to be taken on a bed of corpses. And that gives a whole new depth to that concept and idea. Oh, it was Forrest who said that.
Was it? Oh yeah.
But it gives a whole new depth to that conversation that in the book that Wednesday and Shadow have about liberty and the Liberty Dollar and so forth. Because it was, I'm almost positive it's Robespierre, but yeah, it's one of the most disturbing quotes in the history of the world. Liberty's a whore to be taken on a bed of corpses. Like that's pretty twisted.
Lady Dreamfire's in the chat as well. I'd not seen her earlier, so hello. Anything else in the chat? I was going to bring it. Next scene, Shadow. After he's kind of escaped the train wreckage, we saw him taking a shoe off someone. So it's probably all of the clothes. Was he wearing trousers in the last episode? He didn't have a shirt on because he had.
I don't think they showed him to the waistband, so it's kind of left to your imagination.
We saw him briefly at the beginning when he was hanging down in the middle of it, because that's when you can see it's like a light bulb. I have a feeling he did have trousers on. Feel free to correct me in the chat if I'm wrong. But yeah, he definitely wasn't wearing a shirt. And obviously he must have taken the shirt that he's wearing off one of the dead bodies, and the shoes. And he's sort of stumbling in the forest, and you can see he's bleeding and sweaty, and he seems not quite with it. He's a bit woozy still, probably from bashing his head or something. He's probably a bit concussed. And that's when he comes across the spring.
Yes, the well. So you have memory speaking to you next to a well. I mean, the symbolism there, at least for me, is a huge mythology person. Is so apt At least in my eyes, it's the will of Erd. You know,
Mhm.
it's the will of Erd. Where Wednesday, Odin, made a sacrifice of himself to himself and hung on a tree for 9 days to gain knowledge and drank from the will of Erd. And that was the immediate connotation that my mind made when I was watching that.
Yeah. And Muninn talks to him.
Yes, and my first disappointment of the season.
Oh, because he didn't swear at him.
I just really like, to me, that was one of those like just really cool moments in the book when he's like, "Hey, say nevermore," and Muninn's like, "Fuck off." It's don't get me wrong, they have their little points of humor in the show, but that was one that I really wanted to see, like almost like an Easter egg for book readers.
Yeah, I mean, they could still do that. I don't think Shadow's aware. I don't think he was even aware that Muninn was there, because he's kind of collapsed at this point, hasn't he? And the way the voice is kind of echoing, it's kind of almost like it's in his head and he's saying it out loud. He wouldn't have realised that the bird was talking to him. So, he could, that scene could still happen. And it was oh, what was I going to say? Oh, it's gone. Total brain fart moment. We don't actually see the other raven at all in this episode.
Yeah, we don't see Muninn. We don't see Thought. We just see Memory.
I wonder what he's up to, because they both bring him news, don't they? Both in the mythology, both of them are supposed to bring news to Odin of what they've seen. So
in his temple.
They
stick their beak in his temple.
That would be pretty cool if they did it like that.
Yeah.
In this, it seems kind of simplified to Odin speaks Raven. When he when Muninn arrives at the funeral parlour where Wednesday is, he says, "What's the news?" He just caws at him. So it gives the impression that Odin understands the Raven, like the Raven's language itself, which is why I thought that perhaps it was like some sort of power thing with Shadow. Was it that he actually understood the noises that the Raven makes, or did Muninn deliberately speak English so that Shadow could understand him? I mean, even in the real world, ravens can speak and mimic, so it's not unfeasible for it to actually say an English word out loud. But it's kind of I can't decide which one. Was it that it was just making raven noises and Shadow understood, or it actually deliberately said the words in English so that Shadow would hear them?
Well, and there's also the tradition in that Nordic culture that that there's that ravens can speak, that they can speak to people. There's a tradition to that. Even Tolkien gives a nod to that in The Hobbit. With it's not a raven, it's I think a wren. No, it's a thrush, which is not a corvid, by the way. But can speak, but there are also the talking ravens in that book who who can speak the language of men and can speak the language of dwarves. So it's a nod back to that concept in Nordic culture, I think. I don't think it's. I do think Shadow's concussed. Having been concussed a few times in my life,
including live on YouTube,
including live on YouTube. I don't know how I got through that stream. Like, I don't remember it remotely. Like, I watch it and I'm like, I don't remember this.
Yeah, it doesn't matter that you don't remember it because it's forever immortalized online. But...
yeah, exactly.
I'm not sure how many people that are in the chat actually watch the Cylon Johns as well, but yeah. Daisy's asking, you did a stream with a concussion. Yeah.
I got into a car accident and I was like, hey, I still gotta make it there. It's very good because Johnny was out of town and I was like,
yeah,
one of us has to be there.
Couldn't just leave us all unsupervised.
I was just like, okay, plow on.
That was interesting. Definitely. But yeah, that's dedication, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I didn't get hurt bad enough to upload into another model, but
I don't know. So, but hang on, is it Cylon number 7? Pops up every now and again.
Yeah.
So the funeral parlor.
Yes. Oh. Okay. How did you feel about Jackal and Ibis's characters kind of being combined here?
I don't know. It kind of, as far as I'm aware, Jackal's not going to be in this season. I mean, he could still be. I don't know. Just sort of stuff that I've read and heard. I think it's just the actor had other commitments. I think it still works. I think. Ibis is kind of the more important one anyway, in that he's kind of recording the stories and narrating the Coming to America stories, and he's quite useful for like you've got him talking to Bast and telling her the story about Argus and Io. So he's kind of like an exposition type character.
He's a psychopomp. I mean, he is a psychopomp. I mean, that's Toth and Hermes and these deities are psychopomps. They lead from life to death. They lead from ignorance to knowledge. They lead from like that. That's kind of the position that they play in their respective mythologies.
Yeah, so he's like the more important character as such. I think with seeing Jackal's scenes with him actually being kind of taking people to cross over in the previous season, I can't really see. There's not really much more I think that they could do to develop the character further for this season with how the story's gone so far, unless there's any sort of significant death of like a main character. I could see them using him for that, but we've established what it is that he does, and that's it, really.
I mean, he weighs the souls of the dead.
Yeah, so I mean, like they've established that in season 1, but at the moment, I can't think what they'd be doing to make his character sort of do anything else. So he's kind of surplus to requirement, maybe in this season. I wonder if they'll bring him back for season 3.
I hope so. I really liked that actor, and I love the character.
Yeah, he was good. I do like it, but I do like Mr. Ibis better. I think that sounds really bad, doesn't it? But I prefer him out of the two. His whole demeanor, the way he plays it, I just really like it. How he's kind of jovial for someone in that profession. Like you'd expect a mortician to maybe be a little bit morbid, and he's not at all.
I think we talked about this on another episode. I know a few morticians, and they're the most like abnormally normal people that I've ever met. like just bizarrely normal. There's nothing weird about them.
Yeah.
And the hotel that I work at, we actually host a mortician conference every year. And like somebody who I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, you're kind of creepy. Like it's always like, oh yeah, it's kind of funny.
Next time that's coming up, you will totally have to tell me, because I actually follow a brilliant YouTube channel called Ask a Mortician, and the lady that presents it has actually written a couple of books, and she's really cool. So I'll totally have to send you one of my books and get her to sign it if she goes to that.
She's going there. Okay.
Absolutely. That's probably the most bizarre fangirl thing ever. Get this famous mortician to sign my book.
Yeah, there are far more bizarre fandom things. We'll get to shortly when we talk about Korea and social media, but
yeah. Yeah, I can't imagine. I can imagine like Mortician Con. It wouldn't really. I don't think it'd get very many people.
But the ritual, I love how in the scene, Ibis really actually like the old ritual, and then he's talking to Laura. She's like, "Do you mind?
Are you eating me?"
You know, we've been doing this for 5,000 years. Usually, people aren't there to watch.
It says the funerary arts we practice are ancient, and the deceased don't usually witness them. I wrote that down because it was an awesome quote. I've got the Battlestar notebook is out, so you know I was taking some serious notes in this one rather than just a loose bit of paper. But yeah, she kind of almost, she's just like, okay, and rather than going on like, oh my god, that's fucking disgusting, spit it out. Apart from saying stop chewing, at one point, she kind of just takes it in a stride, which is surprising. You'd think most people would be properly horrified. And Wednesday and Mad Sweeney don't even bat an eyelid, which is quite funny. I mean, we did see him do it last season as well.
Yeah, we saw Jackal do it.
Did they not both do it?
Oh, maybe they did. I distinctly remember Jackal, but maybe I'm just remembering the book.
Could be. I'm sure we'd seen him do it before as well. But I love it when she snapped out of it as well. That was fucking brilliant. And just nutted Sweeney across the room. Maybe that's why you just started calling the dead wife again. I think he was a bit pissed off. And she did call him a coward. She referred to him as the cowardly lion.
Yeah. Which It evokes this whole set of deities and icons. The writing in the show is fucking brilliant.
Mm. Oh, it was just before that, when Wednesday's finished listening to the news from Muninn, he goes, "Oh, you can fuck off now." Just shoos him back out the window with his magazine. That was funny.
Yeah.
It's just so like dismissive and yeah, okay, get lost.
Poor little bird, like such an unappreciated job.
He relies on them a lot.
Right.
So
And doesn't
they're
he?
like,
Thank you.
they're a very important part of his mythology. And obviously he's using them to keep tabs on Shadow. Because we do see him, well, I assume it's Muninn anyway. We see him again in a little while when the Argus drone is there. And I was telling Laura that he can see some sort of change in her. He says, "You've changed from when I last worked on you. You didn't believe in anything then, and now you do." I wonder what that change is, because you would think he must be talking about a physical change.
Right.
Other than the fact that she's rotting. And she actually asks him how much longer he thinks she'll be fixable, and he thinks the stitches will probably only last a week. So she's, I think the rate of decomposition is slightly accelerating, but they seem to be somewhere warm as well at the moment, so they're like out in the heat. So she's got flies around her constantly, and
is latitude was pretty much even with where I live in Ohio, which is also latitude wise pretty much even with where you live. Like Ohio and the UK are latitude wise, I think, almost exactly in the same spot. But I'm like Ohio and Illinois, even more so, are super inland as opposed to you being on an island. So weather patterns are a bit different. Our winters are colder and our summers are hotter. In general, except for that bloody summer that you guys had last summer. Oh.
Yeah, our winters are non-existent, and summers are suddenly becoming even more unbearable for the pasty ones among us. Yeah, I'll be breaking out the factor 50 in no time. Otherwise, I'll just turn into one great big giant freckle.
I need to take a wee intermission.
Mm-hmm.
Will you do me a favor and talk about the giving of the spanner? And
The giving of the spanner. Okay. So, yeah, the giving of the spanner, in case anyone's not sure what that means, is a moderator on the channel. Just because it would be easier just to have somebody that can keep an eye on the chat, just so we're not kind of trying to duck in and out. John has trouble viewing the chat on his laptop, so he's having to view it on his phone. I can't view it on my laptop at the same time as our video call, so I'm having to use my tablet, and obviously I feel a bit awkward that I'm trying to speak and then every couple of minutes I've got this in front of my face. So ideally what John would like to do is have a channel moderator just pick out any important questions or anything in the chat and drop any links. For example, like this evening when the original link for the video was a bit, well, it was wrong, it didn't work properly. It would be easier if someone can sort of hop on, share that around, probably share it on Facebook as well. And then if we're kind of given any shout outs in the chat, just add in a couple of links in there. That's pretty much it really. And in the very, very rare occurrence that someone's an ass in the chat, you know, you'd have powers to ban them or mute them. But so far so good. We haven't had anyone being like that, but it does happen. So yeah, there's not really a huge amount of responsibility with it, but assuming you don't decide to ban everyone from the chat. But John's just going to pick someone from the comments, so it can be anyone in the live chat, or if anybody's watching this back later, feel free to drop a comment under the video if you'd like to do it. So nominate yourselves or someone else, whatever. I hope I waffled enough then.
No, thank you.
I feel like I'm talking to myself.
Djinn have to use the restroom every once in a while. I said Djinn have to use the restroom every once in a while.
Yeah. So we've done I know most of the funeral parlour scene. And then we've got this kind of before the argument, Wednesday tells Argus to hurry up because they have a date with Argus. And his response is, that old dog. And he says, no, not Odysseus's mutt, because Odysseus had a dog called Argus.
Yes.
I don't know anything about it other than that.
Okay, so having taken years upon years of ancient and medieval literature, I'm quite familiar with it. Odysseus' dog was named Argus. If I remember correctly, I did not take Greek. I took Latin. But if I remember correctly, literally Argus means guardian in Greek. If somebody out there knows that I'm wrong, please correct me. But it always Argus's guardian figure, and yeah, I do like that that's brought up. Well,
so and then he's Wednesday says no, the eyes, Argus panoptes, and then that was when I was like, oh, hang on, optes as in optical, as in eyes, and then pan means all. So he's kind of referring to all eyes as in all seeing. That was the only random Latin thing that I picked up, but I was quite pleased with myself for clocking that, because I'm not aware of, again, it's another thing, I don't know a huge amount about the mythology, but is that actually what Argus's name is, or was he always just referred to as Argus? Because he's mentioned as being one of Hera's servants in the story, rather than a god in his own right. Or is it just that he's a minor god, which is why he's one of Hera's servants?
He's a personification. He's a what's the term we talked about it last week?
An anthropomorphic personification.
Yes, he's an anthropomorphic personification. He protects apples and watches a cow.
An important cow.
A very important cow.
As we find out. Yeah, when they've said obviously they're going to go and see, well, he says me and Mrs. Moon have an appointment, a date with Argus. And she's kind of like, well, why should I help you? And he explains that Argus can recharge a coin. Sweeney's like, well, I'm going to New Orleans. And he says, trust me, you're going to need the Baron. And then you've got kind of like this argument between Sweeney and Wednesday, like which one she's going to go with. But I think it's Wednesday says to her, your man works for me. So I think him pointing out that Shadow is essentially more likely to be doing stuff for Wednesday, that's what makes her go with him, rather than just the fact that Argus can recharge the coin. I think it's more to do with Shadow, which is why she chooses him.
It's well, okay, really quick. First, let's finish up the funeral parlor, because Ibis tells the whole story. behind.
Yeah.
Argus.
Yeah, he's talking to his cat as well.
Yes. His cat or his sister.
Bast, who I believe we're going to see in god or human form at some point.
I would love it if she's actually like. I need to watch the credits and see if it says Bast like in the credits, and it's like the cat's name.
Played by Fluffy the cat. Yeah, that would be pretty funny.
I actually years ago I had a cat named Bast. Actually, she looked like Shade with a tail.
Oh, that's quite an appropriate name for a cat, isn't it? Yeah, so he's basically telling her the story of Io and Argus, which we do see reenacted. But basically, he's kind of pointing out that Hera was quite powerful before she was married to Zeus as well. He said she's the goddess of marriage and childbirth and ruled heaven and earth, ruled in the heavens and on earth. So she was powerful in her own right. And mentions that she was also Zeus's sister. And they fought over his infidelity quite often. And he was sort of notorious for putting it about and having a lot of illegitimate children, which pissed her off in general.
Serial rape, I think would be the best way to describe Zeus. Like
that too.
Greek mythology. Oh, yeah, serial rapist.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, don't guss it up. Zeus was a serial rapist.
Yeah. And it's kind of pointed out that it's different with Io in that he actually fell in love with her. So Hera was extra pissed off about this particular one, and intervened, which normally she didn't. She just got annoyed. But she was particularly angry about this one. The quote that Ibis said was that love at first sight doesn't require a second look. And he fell madly in love with her. So Hera got extremely pissed off. It says that I don't know. I don't actually know the story outside of this, but it said Zeus consummated his passion. It doesn't say that she was willing. And then Hera turned her into a cow.
Yes, Hera turned her into a cow and had her protected by Argus
to keep Zeus away from her, or to keep her away from Zeus.
Yeah, in the myth, Argus has 100 eyes, so he never fully sleeps. He always has a few eyes open.
Mm-hmm.
And then it talks about how he sends Hermes or Mercury to lull the giant to sleep, and then he kills him.
Yes,
and
delivers a fatal message.
And Hera was brokenhearted that her, well, A, the cow got away, and B, that her guardian was murdered. So that's why peacocks have their feathers. That's why they have eyes on their feathers.
Mm-hmm.
Which I've always loved peacocks since I was a little kid when I first read that myth.
Well, they show Hera as the peacock, don't they? In the pictures. I can't think what those picture things are called now. Let's just see if there's a thing. Oh no, I don't know. I think there's a proper name for those devices. If anybody does know, do feel free to mention it in the chat.
Up, by the way, Brown Holler. No, Zeus turned into a bull to impregnate Io, or Europa, who he chased across the water, and that's why Europe is called Europe. Um,
Wow.
yeah, lots of bull mythology. Probably came from Crete because the Mycenaeans were kind of founded by the Cretians or Minoans, not the latter Cretians. And yeah, Tim hates new media. New media.
I just noticed that. I wouldn't say that I hate her, Tim, but I am with you that Gillian Anderson is better. For me, so far, anyway. I still prefer her.
I think new media is brilliant because I love to hate her. Like I love kids who I work with. But we'll get to that in a minute. We could. Okay, so yeah, Ibis tells the story
Mm-hmm.
from a very sanitized version of the story.
Yeah, I suppose they're trying to keep it brief. Plus, the story doesn't have to be exactly the same as it would be in mythology, because obviously the point in this one is that when she resurrects him into the god of surveillance,
right,
in America, which obviously that's not part of the real mythology. So it's and that's when we're shown. Is that when we're shown the drone? Yeah, it is. That's when he's explained that. He says his sight waned as his followers did, but his memories remain intact.
yeah. Tech Boy is so pissed off about Argus. He's like, I told you. I've been trying to do this, get him to clean up his stuff.
I don't think he really cares that much. You can see when Mr. World is kind of getting pissed off with him, he looks like he's about to backchat. He looks, do you know what he reminds me of? It's like a teenager being told off by their dad. His whole attitude in that scene. It's very much like, oh, yeah, okay, kind of, yeah, I know. You're telling me stuff that I already know. And then it's only when Mr. World says, you don't want me to sort this out, he kind of goes, fuck, all right, I'll do something. He's like a petulant teenager. His whole demeanour, the way he's kind of sitting there, like almost laughing and just like dismissive.
Dad, come on.
Yeah, and you can see like almost he's just about to backchat because he stands up. It like stands up to him quite literally, and that's when he says, "You don't want me to solve this," and he stands up like he's going to say something, and then it's like he thinks better of it and just goes, "Right." Like,
and then we hear Mr. World enunciate out loud, where you don't need to read the subtitles to actually hear what's coming out of his mouth.
yeah, it's he's someone said imagination realm. He's a brat. Yeah, he is. Very much so.
He's a anthropomorphic personification.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and yeah, the technical boy would be a brat.
Yeah. Oh, Tim's just said, is Mr. Town dead already? We don't know. We don't think so because they didn't show him die. He just kind of ran off. So it's ambiguous at the moment. It's up in the air.
We got hit in the face with the door, and then we didn't see him again.
Yeah. So as we didn't see a body of him in the train wreck, I'm going to go with he's still alive.
I don't believe it. I don't think he's dead.
And there's a great quote from Mr. World as well in this, because Tech Boy says, "Okay, I'll text him," and he says, "No, in person." And when he asks why, he says it's tradition, which is the last thing you would think that the new gods would care about is tradition. That he says we'll build the new world on top of the ruins of the old. So he's very particular about how he wants things done. Possibly because he knows that Wednesday is on the way as well. that's why he wants Tech Boy there in person, but I don't know. And then we meet New Media. Everyone's talking about her in the chat, so let's have a look. There's just a couple of things from Peter Griffin. So Mr. Wells, Sammy Good? Maybe not. But yeah, New Media. I'm not sure. I don't like her so far, but I think that's why she's good as a character. Like, the actress is playing her very well, and the character is good.
Oh, I think she's brilliant. Like I was saying, like she makes me think of the kids I work with. Like, I love how she pops up and she's like, I have this many subscribers and I have this many likes and I have this many, and you know, Tech Boy said it in the last episode. He had a point. He's like, you can't go on being I Love Lucy and Marilyn Monroe and David Bowie. Nobody gives a shit about that anymore, because in our modern society we have this like 5-second attention span.
Yeah, and it's a good contrast, actually, that old media was like these more older icons, like the Bowie, the particular get-up that she's wearing is from the 70s.
Oh, don't get me wrong, I loved Gillian Anderson as David Bowie. It was just awesome.
It was amazing. She did so well. And that particular outfit was from Life on Mars, which came out in the 70s. And then you'd got Marilyn Monroe. But New Media just very briefly did the Marilyn Monroe thing, which I thought was a good nod. But obviously,
the Snapchat wig icon, it was brilliant.
It was a good nod to
genius.
Yeah, I liked that, and just the emojis flying everywhere. And if you in the background, you can see there's loads of pictures and stuff. It looks like there's like loads of Instagram posts or like social media stuff, and that's her main thing, isn't it? It's social media,
right,
rather than new media. It's more to do with social media and the online media type thing, rather than like TV, music, radio, that which old media was more representation of. So it works really well, because knowing that Gillian Anderson had left, it was very much like, wow, what are they going to do? Are they just not going to have media anymore, or are they going to try and get somebody else to carry on playing it? But even though it's supposed to be a reincarnation of the same person, it's so different, and it works. It really works.
Music reference here. What it reminds me of is back in what was it, 78, when Bon Scott died. Like, AC/DC could have just broken up. Instead, they found a new singer and put out their most iconic, most badass album. That, like, anybody who says that they hate is lying. Like, they're really like Back in Black is just fracking awesome. And you know, they could have just, hey, you know, Bond's dead, we're done, you know. No, instead, hey, you know, we're gonna keep plowing on.
Yeah, and it works.
Adapt and overcome. You know, and I like that the show did that, and I like that the character in media did that, because Tech Boy does have a point. Like, you know, to younger people, these people who we might consider iconic, like, they don't, like, the mythology behind Marilyn Monroe doesn't matter to the average 16-year-old.
No.
Or I Love Lucy. Are you drinking a Guinness there?
Yeah, have you only just noticed?
Pop on.
In an actual Guinness glass, look. Ooh.
Yes, lovely. Lovely.
And she's excited about going to see Argus for the fibre optics.
Yes.
Yeah, she definitely enjoyed the fibre optics more than
Well,
your average person would. She's already got a plan.
should we go into that, or should we go ahead and talk about Shadow's road trip first?
It's up to you.
No, it's up to you. I'm asking you as the.
I've waffled enough. You've not done enough waffling, and I know that you like Sam Blackcrow, so
I do love me some Sam Blackcrow. Yeah, let's just go into that. I like that their roles are kind of reversed in the situation compared to the book. Because in the book, she's a hitchhiker.
yes, she's the hitchhiker, and
And
he
he
picks
picks her up.
her up. Mm.
And in the show, like she sees him pulling a con, which I thought was so well done. Uh, I mean, it's classic old con, but I thought it was performed well.
It's kind of a hint to how Shadow was before he went to prison.
Yeah.
A little bit of the old Shadow. It's kind of like he's got some of his confidence back, and perhaps that whole journey and being by himself for a little while has helped him with that. Kind of away from all the mystic stuff that's been going on around him, and he's kind of able to come out of his shell slightly and a little bit of the old him. Not that that's necessarily a good thing, because obviously he was like conning casinos, but it's
But a grifter's a grifter, and a son is his father's child.
but yeah, I like that the way they did it, and he's kind of flirting with the shop assistant, and you really think that Sam's gonna say he's taking the piss there when she comes in and says, "Hang on a minute," and then it was just, he hasn't paid you for that pretty smile. So she kind of, she makes him think that she's gonna grass him up, which is probably, again, I've just used a complete anglicism there.
No, that's I know what you meant.
Yeah, I was. She was going to sort of drop him in it, but she didn't, and she could have. And she makes sure he knows that she could have, the way she looks at him, and kind of doesn't really leave him much choice other than to pay for her fuel and kind of leave it at that. That's the only way he can avoid getting found out.
But then he turns it around on her. And he's like, "So that $20 of gas that I got you,
Yeah.
where's that going to get me?" I like how there's the role reversal and the switch from the book here. I think it I think it's well done. Is it, one of the things we thought, like a book that was written 20 years ago and a show that's on now. You can't do it word for word and line for line. And
No, I mean she pops up again in the more than once in the book. It'd be a shame if they don't bring her back in the show. Because the actress,
she'll be back. I mean, she's kind of important to the. It's like we were talking about last week. Like I think there are things that they're going to change, but I think certain things that are going to stay exactly.
but yeah, she's I like the actress. She was good. And did you notice the tattoo on her arm?
Buffalo.
With the ravens.
Yeah.
On the horns.
Okay, so do you, as someone from the UK who's not a mythology person, like, did you get references there?
So the buffalo that recurs quite a lot in Shadow's dreams. It's also like a Native American symbol.
Yeah, it's
and
an iconic spirit animal.
Yeah.
Especially in the Central Plains part of America. The raven is actually, I got one right here. A trickster god from mostly Pacific Northwestern
Mm-hmm.
American cultures, but the trickster god created the world. Actually, the trickster god created the world because he stole fire from the gods and then took a big shit.
Yeah, there's more than one trickster god in this series, though.
Yeah, just like 1 or 10. Most of them are somewhere on my body.
Peter Griffin in the chat says maybe Ostish or androgyny. That I know very little about this, but I think that he's quite right that that's what the character is based on in the book.
Yeah, I think they define it a bit more in the show. Because in the book, you're like, okay, this is a bisexual woman.
But
the show already so far, like, you know, she's like, I was born with these two parts, like
two souls. She describes it as,
two souls, not two parts. I don't know. They get pretty graphic.
It could be misinterpreted that way. Actually,
John, yeah.
I wonder how many people watched it and thought that. It's a fair point. If they've not read the books and don't really know that, yeah. I can, especially because of, you know, she's outwardly feminine, but then she's got short hair and she's kind of tomboyish. I can see people actually thinking that's what it means, but yeah.
There's that cute moment when she takes the picture of Shadow while he's sleeping.
Yeah, it's a bit creepy actually. I'd be really freaked out. So I would be. I have been really freaked out by having random photos taken of me sleeping.
I love that she had an old Polaroid camera. Like I love that the show does all these little nods to things that are American icons.
Yeah,
like, I remember as a wee little thing, like having, like, Mom had her Polaroid camera, like the big ugly freaking Polaroid camera. And there's so many bad pictures, but it's spontaneous, and you get that immediate. I mean, it was kind of the open door to immediate gratification, if you think about it.
Yeah.
A Polaroid camera, you didn't have to sit there and go to the, like, because it used to be you had to go to the photomat or you had to go to the drugstore.
I'm old enough to know this.
Yeah. No, but you had to do that, and you had to wait like 3 days. Whereas with Polaroid, it's kind of, oh God, now my gears are turning. Like, kind of the door to social media and what we have now with our gratification culture and things like that. Like, oh, shit.
Yeah, it is though. And you see she's got other photos like stuck to the dashboard and there's things written on them. So it's like she's kind of she's using it to kind of, you know, like record memories and stuff. It's, you know, they're all mementos of things. It's like a traveling photo album.
Yeah.
Does she Sleeping Beauty? She writes on there.
Yeah. No, and that's the thing. Like, she's all tough and you know, masculine, but then she has that moment when he's asleep and she takes the picture, and you know, it's all like cutesy and Sleeping Beauty with little Z's and hearts. And
it is very cute. So I cringed a bit though when she's kind of doing that while she's driving and she's getting the pen out and writing it. I'm sitting there thinking, fuck, she's gonna crash the car. Like, one wrecked car's enough for one episode, you know.
Speaking of wrecks, what about Mad Sweeney's trip?
Oh my God, that was hilarious. Just when he thinks his luck's changed, like trying all the cars, and the one car he finds, he's like, yes, it's open. Yes, I've got the keys. And there's that fucking huge dog in the back seat. Oh, just brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. It was like, you know, the universe was playing tricks on him there. Very
And
much.
the boats
And
with the wee little fishing boats.
oh, the boat. Could anything else have gone wrong? Break the boat and set it on fire, you know. I hope he can swim. And yeah, where he ends up, the tour bus, you know, he's like, oh, tour, you know, again, finally my luck has changed. A tour bus, this might actually be something cool. No, it's Faith of the Raptured, a Christian rock band. It's just when he's like, for fuck's sake.
It was so great. Like, it's done so well. Yeah, we're going to New Orleans to spread our message, man. He's like, okay. They're like, spread the message of Jesus. He's like,
so yeah, he might get all the way to New Orleans, but he's not going to be doing it drinking and smoking and gambling. He's going to be surrounded by a bunch of sort of straight edge, sipping tea and yeah, singing Kumbaya with a bit of bass maybe, but
no, it's just now here's my point though. The further he gets from Laura, the more fracked up things get.
It shows how much he was wise to stick with her, because even though technically she's got the coin, I think just being in proximity to her and to the coin, although he still didn't have all of his luck, it was enough. Like in the diner scene, with the sniper, he slipped on a pool of blood and fell a split second before a bullet would have hit him in the head.
Right.
So, you know, he's still being, and Laura was standing quite close to him at that point because the bullet hit her. So you can see that being in proximity to her has the, you know, the coin's still able to have an effect on him, and not being close to her, it all goes tits up.
And I think, you know, it's humorous and kind of ridiculous how, you know, his series of misadventures or whatever. But in its own way, like I think Mad Sweeney would rather catch on fire than be stuck on a boat with a Protestant rock band.
I think you're right.
I think he's like, oh, bugger.
Yeah, there's
like, you guys got a little dish of cream and a cup of beer for me? Like, please.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if the fact that they're so, you know, they'll be very calm and laid back and nice and everything. It's the complete opposite to the type of worship we discussed. You know, we were talking about in the last episode with the fight, and it was like that's like a type of sacrifice to him, and that gives him more power. The complete opposite is probably going to make him quite weak as well. So he's going to be weak, he's away from his coin, he's got no luck at all, but he's going to see Baron Samedi. It's like there's the last things he needs to go for a meeting with him. He needs his strength and he needs his luck.
Yeah, you know, as we were talking about last week, he's a war god.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, leprechauns aren't these cute little things who like sell cereal for General Mills. They're like, back in the day, really badass motherfuckers.
Yeah.
And you know, yeah, getting stuck on a bus full of, you know, teetotaling Protestants who probably, like, you know, talk things out. He's probably like, oh God.
Yeah.
He's
It's just
like,
like
come
the
on.
complete opposite to his nature. Peter Griffin's a great point in the chat. Little did the band know Sweeney was just with 1,000 Jesuses last season. Yeah, and I bet he didn't like a single one of them.
Because what did they do? You know our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ? I think that was the quote, if I remember correctly. And he just rolled his eyes.
Like, yeah, I fucking know every one of them.
It's like I met them all.
Yeah, yes, I know them personally. Yeah, well, Mexican Jesus didn't make it, but
he did 3 days later.
Of course. Imagination Realm has just said, wait, is he a god? Sweeney is.
Yes, Sweeney's a god. So, okay, little history lesson here. That Celtic expansionism, the British Isles and Ireland, there was a gradual expansionism of different migrations from the mainland. And every time a new group would come in, they would kind of conquer, and the older gods would be diminished. Now, the older Celtic people, especially in Ireland and Cornwall, to them, leprechauns were fairy. They were she. And they're badass motherfuckers who live in the Hollow Hills and come out and, are spirits of power. And gradually, with each different migration of another culture, they got diminished until there were the Romans and then the Christian Romans, until eventually, like, people think of leprechauns as, motherfuckers who sell cereal. And that Americans, talk about one day a year when they're all Irish. And I won't get into that because, I just won't get into that. But, yeah. And that's a lot of what the story's about, is the diminishment of gods, the diminishment of deities. It happened in the old world, but it's even more so, it happens in the new world. Speaking of which, I'll be disappointed if we don't see a railroad god, like the Baron of the railroad, like robber baron, type of god who's like all washed up, and because that is in the book, and I would be very disappointed if that little Easter egg isn't there.
Imagination Realm says, knew they were powerful, but I was thinking along the lines of nymphs, etc. I think that the original mythology of fairies as such, they weren't like these cute little things with wings and stuff. It's like, the Wild Hunt was the she.
Yeah. No, there was a lot of what's his fucking name? Oxford professor who compiled all the blue fairy book and the red fairy book and the green fairy book, and
no idea.
Victorian era took fairies and
turned them into what we know as fairies now.
Created them.
Yeah. But yeah, traditionally they were, and Bron Haller makes a good point. She says there's a fine line between gods and other immortal / magical beings. What's a god in one culture may be a magical being in a different one. So yeah, you've got it's not all religion. Some of it's folklore.
It's all
so. Yeah, they don't necessarily have to be gods as such. It is sort of mythical beings. of all descriptions. Yeah, there's some of the in the book, like we've got Whiskey Jack. He's like a folk character as such, isn't he? Rather than an actual god.
Native American religion is a lot different from your old world religion. It's less established. They have folk heroes. They have, you know, and you know, that's even brought up in the book. Like, folk heroes can kind of survive, but like gods don't do well in America because it's just a bad country for gods. You know, like your folk heroes in, like, yeah, Whiskey Jack. It's different. It's like Coyote. Like Coyote, yeah, or Raven. Either of them are trickster gods. But like Coyote's dumber than shit. You know, it also goes back to episode 1 of the season when we were talking about when Anansi was like, or when Odin, when Wednesday was talking to Anansi, and he's like, "Did you at least get the rabbit?" And Anansi's like, "No, rabbit doesn't want anything to do with you." And it's because a lot of your traditional African folklore of Anansi stories, when they came to America, were turned into Brer Rabbit stories. Like, it's almost the same story. It's just a rabbit that's smarter and craftier. But he wasn't worshipped. It was. It's a folk hero, so it's, you know, and that's one of the things that the book and the series keeps going back to is that like worship is so valuable, but so slip through your fingers here in America.
Peter Griffin says in the chat that about them possibly blending Whiskey Jack with Iktomi.
Yeah, they're essentially the same character from different cultures. Different Native American cultures, but essentially they are the same character with just different names. Wiskechik is the way the Sioux would pronounce it, whereas Iktomi, I think, is Iroquois. But it's kind of the same collection of thoughts. It you know, we have a huge continent here. It's ridiculous how huge this continent is.
We can talk about Iktomi because we see him obviously briefly in this episode. We've got the Djinn and going to the Corn Palace. I don't know if anybody else noticed, but obviously it was a strip bar, and the way the lights were, where it said Corn Palace, the C looked like a P, so it looked like it said Porn Palace, which really tickled me. In a childish way, of course.
Yes, Iktomi, and who was the big man with the very deep voice? Now, book readers are going to know who that is.
He was credited in the show as, I'm probably butchering the pronunciation, Naskinyan, with what I think should be a silent G at the beginning. I'll write it in the chat because my...
Okay, see, I didn't see that in the credits. See, I thought this was Alvis.
I don't know.
Yeah, I thought this was Alvis.
He was that's who the actor was credited as.
Yeah, okay, that does make a lot more sense. That does make a lot more sense because I was just thinking Alvis was hanging out with Iktomi.
I think I couldn't really find. I did Google that because I'd never heard of it before, and I couldn't really find a lot. But I think he comes from the same sort of folklore as Iktomi.
Right.
So yeah, it makes sense. But I couldn't sort of find any stories or anything about him, so I don't know if he's a significant character or if we're even going to see him again. But he knew the Djinn. They knew each other. You know,
Yeah.
they recognised each other like old friends. The only other real information as such we got about Iktomi was that he'd accepted Wednesday's terms, but said he would owe him a favour. And the Djinn said that he's a shapeshifter, and he said like not to look him in the eyes. So I thought he'd have like some weird eye thing going on, but he just looked like a normal person. So it was.
So you have that guitar case, which allegedly has.
Yeah.
Here.
Why didn't they open it to check? Because that's what most people would do.
But then also what I think is so much more important, and this is something that being the myth nerd that I am, I caught, and I don't know if anybody else did. If you caught it, say it right now, and I'll give you the spanner. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. He said you'll need this too.
Oh, I know what that's going to be.
Do you know what that was?
The seedling. It's got to be Yggdrasil, hasn't it?
No, it's mistletoe.
Was it mistletoe?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's mistletoe, and mistletoe is very important to this whole story.
I thought it would be Yggdrasil. That's just the impression that I got, because that's probably going to be significant. Again, I'm not sure if they're going to do that storyline this season, but yeah, I thought it would be that.
Well, you know why mistletoe is so important to this story.
And yeah, what it can do.
What do you specifically do to this guy whose name starts with a B?
Mm-hmm. Oh, no, we're going to have to spoil stuff.
It's a spoiler channel. We can spoil what we want. Listen
Yeah.
to
It can kill Balder, can't it? Well, we don't have to tell them who. Oh, Forrest's dropped it in the chat anyway. Yeah, it's but what? No, it's okay. Forrest's gone. Oops, don't worry. It's spoilers are allowed. Yeah, Bronhalla said she thought it might have been mistletoe as well, but yeah, it's what killed Balder in his story. So yeah, it does make sense.
Sorry.
Yeah.
This is a spoiler-full channel. This isn't like Cylon Johns, where Johnny and I twiddle our mustaches.
Yeah, see, I've got nothing to twiddle, nothing that I can do on a live stream anyway. That would be really inappropriate. So, oh dear.
Yeah, this isn't that kind of channel. You might want to go over to.
No. Yes, there'll be no twiddling from me. So yeah, I've got nothing to twiddle, so I can't be all mysterious. So we'll just spoil it anyway. I can twiddle my lips. That actually, there, I can do that.
But yes, it was mistletoe. I actually have some growing in my yard. I don't know why. I didn't choose to. It just chose to grow here.
It's prolific once it starts growing, though. I have to say, I don't know. I don't think it does grow wild here at all. I've never seen it. But I remember seeing it everywhere last time I went to France, in the countryside. Like there's like not a single tree that's not full of it. At first, I didn't realise what it was, and I was just thinking, why are there so many birds' nests?
It's kind of the same. Kudzu. Kudzu. It's also an ivy. And it's the same. Like if kudzu gets on something, it's all over the fracking place. It's on everything. Everything's covered in kudzu. It's pretty, but it's like really bad for the foundations of your house. So
yeah, I think it just seemed like every single tree had it. When I last went to France, it was just everywhere, and I remember thinking, like, God, is that because it just infects everything as such? But yeah, like I said, I've never seen it growing wild here, so I don't think it does. We only ever see it like in shops at Christmas, and that's it.
But yeah, mistletoe is very important. If anybody wants to do homework, read a little bit about Norse mythology and mistletoe. If you've not read this book, then it'll probably give you a clue to where the story's going.
Oh, Bronhalla, this is as a plant/bug person. I wonder if it's a specific mistletoe species, because different mistletoe species can require different hosts. I like that you're a bug person, so am I. I'm going a whole other tangent with that.
I recognized it from the leaves because, like, I have it grown in my yard. So I'm not sure about that brown holler. I like how Tim F says, I have a buddy that keeps asking me if Shadow is Wednesday's son. I'm like, sorta. Just wait. It's fucked up, man.
That's one way of putting it.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Which, speaking of Wednesday, yeah, Wednesday and Laura are going to Argus's.
This was so good. This journey. I've got like fucking notes everywhere because I did my notes on 2 separate watches because it all went horribly wrong when I was watching the first one, watching it the first time. So yeah, they're taking the scenic route. And when she asks him what the place is, he's saying, you know, different people will tell you different things. Like the tinfoil brigade will tell you it's like the Illuminati. The like local government would tell you it's just a building full of computers. And he says, the truth doesn't care which version you prefer. Truth is just information, and information will win the war for you if you let it. Which implies that this is part of his long game. And the first scene, he says they're taking the scenic route, going old school, and they're in a field. And between the sort of conversation with her about why she came back, we're seeing a reenactment of the story that Ibis was telling. Briefly, we see the cow and Argus dead. And his conversation with Laura here. What did you come back for anyway? And he calls her a revenant. Says that revenants just have one thing that they need to do. So what's your mission? And she's just like, well, it's Shadow. But he's saying, oh, you know, get married, have kids, blah, 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 which obviously isn't going to happen now. Like, how do you see this ending? And she doesn't have an answer for him. And he says, like, don't you wonder why you came back? And she tells him that she sees a golden beam of light wherever he is, and talks about how when he kissed her, it made her heart beat again. But he's telling her, well, you're just talking about yourself there. It's all about you. What about him? And then, fantastic line, he says, do you really think you can compete with what I can show him? You know, it is a competition. They're both fighting over him. Like, I think I said earlier, it's like jealous lovers fighting over someone. That makes more sense than like children fighting over a toy kind of analogy. And yeah, it's such an interesting conversation between them. And he's kind of revealing to her a little bit about some of his motives. You know, he's not really being particularly shy about the fact that he clearly doesn't want her around.
Right.
And he wants her to leave Shadow alone. You know, he's kind of making it fairly obvious that he's got some sort of plan for Shadow, that you know, she needs to be off the scene for. But yeah, and then you've got like the sacrifice scene with he cuts the throat of the bull and it turns back into another bull, the cow, and it turns back into Io.
Not a bull, cow.
Not a bull, a cow. Yeah, got that completely wrong, didn't I?
No, you're wrong. Zeus loved his buggery too. Hashtag Ganymede. But poor little Ganymede.
Imagination Realm says, is she a demon? No, I don't think so.
No, in Wednesday, I think points out he's like the dead always have something they come back for.
Yeah,
They do their thing,
like,
and then they're going.
Unfinished business.
Yeah.
Yeah, and well, Shadow is her unfinished business. But beyond that, she doesn't really know why or how. Forrest, really good thing. Can't stop overthinking about Shadow since he reminds me so much of Mars. I have a feeling like he had no birth mother at all, like Zeus grew Mars in his head.
No, Zeus grew Athena in his head.
Yeah, I was going to say Mars is Roman, Zeus is Greek. Not quite.
Well, Mars or Ares, like, yeah, Zeus shagged that one with Hera. It's one of Hera and Zeus's true-born children.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Peter Griffin says the significance in the wooden staff as a god killer. It had an etching, but I couldn't make it out. It was eyes. You'd literally got like, hang on. So I'm going to do some really, really bad drawing now, but it was the engravings were like that. So they look like eyes, basically.
Yeah. He had 100 eyes.
I'm not sure the significance of it appearing to be wooden.
It wasn't a codicus, though. It wasn't a codicus or caduceus, depending on how you want to pronounce it. You know, which would be Hermes' staff. Like Hermes has a staff. You see it every time you go to the doctor's office.
Yeah, that with the serpent. No, it looked like a knife. Like it actually had like a normal table knife. You know, it looked like a long bit, and the bit that came out at the side.
Right.
So it just looked like an actual like a table knife made out of wood. The fact that it had the eyes on it, you know, it signifies it's something to do with Argus, I think, rather than anyone else. Oh, question from Peter Griffin in the chat. Bit of a noob question. There's no such thing. Are gods not allowed to kill other gods? Did Odin need Laura to do the deed? I don't think it's a case of not being allowed. I think it's a case of not wanting to get their own hands dirty.
I think it's a case of wanting a sacrifice.
Yeah. like Mr. World could have sort of shot up the diner on his own if he really wanted to, but he didn't. But yeah, I don't recall seeing anything about there being any sort of rule about like they can't attack or kill each other, because Wednesday kills Vulcan anyway. We have seen him kill another god.
Yes, this is true.
And are they really dead? They're not always really dead. A lot of the time they come back. So depending on how many followers and believers they still have. And obviously, I mean, Vulcan might come back. Because he'd got himself set up with an awful lot of followers and worshippers, so we might see him again. So repercussions. They said like they didn't want to undo Laura's death because Odin ordered it.
Interesting. And yes, Peter Griffin also has a hell of a point. The deep state will always have believers. Which is essentially what Argus has become.
Yeah.
And this is why Odin says, hey, remember which side you're on next time.
Yeah, it's kind of implying if you try and fuck us over again, we're going to come and kill you again. Essentially, he's kind of telling him, we know what you've been up to.
It does to the whole fiber optic scene. And I know how comfy this makes some of our friends.
Oh, it's after the watershed. It's all good. So
let's talk about new media.
Yeah, I think she already had a plan, because she mentioned that as soon as she was incarnated, as it were, she was already hatching a plan before they even got there.
I'm sorry, Peter Griffin's comment. Horny media was so close to being there, and Laura blocked it.
Oh dear. Yeah, I think. Oh, there's some awesome jakes in there somewhere, aren't there? Maybe this is how nanolons were created. That crossover there.
Big nanolons.
Yeah. Yeah, she totally knew what she was going to do, I think, before they even got there. That was her plan. And when she said, "Oh, the guy with the fiber optics, that's my jam," straight away she was like, "Ha, well, that's the person I want to form an alliance with, because between the two of us, we could be really, really powerful." And it is almost like a merging, literally and figuratively. And it's quite funny. If anyone else picked up on this, when Wednesday wants Laura to kill Argus, he actually says to her, "It's my hand up your skirt, puppet." And yeah, obviously it was Argus's tentacle up Media's skirt.
Yeah.
Because the way he was sat there with all the wires and stuff going around it looked like tentacles. It looked like a great big octopus mutant thing. And I think some of that might have been deliberate.
Yeah, oh, definitely.
But I thought she was trying to take him over. Yeah, I think it kind of. I don't think take him over. I think it sort of merge as such. Would she? I don't think she'd be able to take him over completely. I think she'd be able to take other things over through him.
Right.
Because of how connected he'd be to everything.
Yeah, I think right.
Octopus in the chat. Brilliant.
But yeah, what are your thoughts on new media period? And stuff. Sorry.
She I think she's just going to do her own thing. I think old media, very much kind of, she worked for Mr. World. And new media, I don't think she does. I don't think she really has any particular allegiance to either side at the moment. I think she'd perhaps rather go and do her own thing, or try and find somebody else powerful and, you know, and take over herself, rather than it being sort of Mr. World at the head of the new gods.
The young man who plays Tech Boy. This is my acting chops for this episode. When he sees new media come out, like the expression, wordless acting. Wordless acting can be brilliant, and you just see he's like, oh my gosh, this is everything I've ever wanted, everything I've ever needed. And I think that's why he just totally lets the whole Argus thing happen. He's a wee bit jealous.
I think he just kind of wants to see what's going to happen as well. And when he was trying to find her in the previous episode, he was saying, he said, you need me. You're nothing without me, because she wouldn't exist without the technology. I can possibly see maybe them two trying to strike out on their own. She's probably going to be really pissed off with him for not intervening and stopping Laura. But I don't think she'll let it get in her way of whatever it is she's trying to achieve.
No, but I thought the whole scene was just done so brilliantly. And I think I personally love new media. She always piss out of me, but
yeah, that's why she's good, though, isn't it? It's the fact that she is so annoying, and that's what makes her such a good character.
Yeah, exactly. I spot on. Like the way they shot, like you were talking about earlier, with the little emojis popping up, and it fracking brilliant.
It's like every annoying Instagram influencer and irritating emojis and stuff all rolled into one.
Right.
It's very much. I think it's designed to be like, she's designed to be a character you love to hate.
Yeah, which is great. Like, honestly, with her there, you really don't hate Tech Boy that much.
Yeah, he's just annoying. She's like in your face. And that's the annoying thing about Tech Boy is that he comes across like a stupid, grumpy teenager who doesn't want to do what he's told.
Tim F, I agree with you. Crispin Glover as Mr. World was beyond brilliant casting. And I'm happy that he finally projects in this episode.
Yeah, he's
So I don't have to rewatch his dialogue scenes about 6 or 7 times. Actually hear what he's saying.
Yeah, but his voice and his his delivery, everything. He is very, very good at playing the part. He's fantastic. And the new gods seem to do what he wants to because they're scared of him. And compared to the other characters that we've seen, like the other gods, they're the ones that should be scary, but he's more scary than they are.
I don't know. Easter scares the living shit out of me. Easter scares the living shit out of me, and I really hope she comes back.
Why? Why is she scary?
She took away spring.
Took away? Oh, because she took away spring. She did. I suppose that's kind of like how powerful she actually. I mean, she's an old god, kind of really old god, isn't she? So she would
her and Mama G are chilling back in the nursing home for gods.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like, Mama G should be fucking terrifying, shouldn't she?
Oh, I want to see terrifying Mama G.
Yeah,
I'm hoping that by the end of the show we get to see terrifying Mama G. I'm hoping we get to see Mama G with 6 fucking arms and the Gene Simmons tongue and like it heads and axes. Like,
yeah, drinking blood and lopping off heads.
Like drinking blood and lopping off heads. It's some of the brilliance of the script writing on the show, because when she says that's such a hilarious line, because it's like, this is Kali.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, well, I guess it's back to drinking blood and chopping off heads. And
yeah, she should be really fucking scary, and she's not really so far. But Mr. World, he is scary, and realistically, we haven't even seen him do a huge amount. It's what he's doing behind the scenes and what you don't know that makes him scary. And it's his whole demeanor, it's his character, and the way he speaks, and everything, like how everything's so yeah, it's like everything's said very slowly and very
precisely.
Yeah, it's like every word he says carries meaning and purpose, and it's all important. And
one of my few beefs with this episode, an Easter egg or a teaser for people who've not read the book, is that Mr. World does not have scars on his lips. That's one of those things as a myth person and a book reader that I really wish they had put scars on his lips. Because I think as a little Easter egg that would have been very well done.
Look. Why do you think they chose the gods they do? Where are other goddesses that could have done what Ishtar did? They're around.
Yeah, I mean, people see Easter all the time and they don't know what they're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
It's like she says, they still hide eggs in my name. They, like, yeah, but you don't have any power. They don't even remember you. But I love that scene when we finish season 2 and we go back and start talking about season 1. Like I love that scene that Easter's having this party at her house, and she's got all these Jesuses hanging out at her party. Brilliant.
Yeah. I did like her as the character.
I knew what I was talking about. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like Tim said that the Easter actress isn't coming back that's true. She jumped ship with Brian Fuller, but as did Gillian Anderson. Recasting media's worked, so there's nothing to say they couldn't do the same thing with her. So
Are anthropomorphic beings, like they don't have to have a certain. I mean, that's the brilliance of them.
yeah,
They don't have to have a certain. Now, don't get me wrong. I will throw my remote at the TV and quit watching this if Wednesday is somebody else next season. Like,
oh God, yeah, that would be.
Bugger y'all. I'm out.
I don't think any other actor could do the role justice, though.
And Imagination Realm, yes, that party was so cool. Yeah, I would have loved to be at that party.
Yeah, it should look like a pretty cool party.
And you're not going to run out of wine.
Very true. No, quite literally on tap. Just turn the taps on. You're like, right, your turn. Do your thing. You'd have trouble beating that party trick, though, wouldn't you? It's like the ultimate party trick.
I would be dead if somebody pulled off that party trick on a regular basis. I'd probably just not be around anymore.
So when the coin recharges.
Yes. And you got your brown eyes back.
Yes, that is exactly what I wrote down. First thing, coin recharges, Laura's eyes back to normal. So when I'd said previously about the thing in the Horde, when they're travelling through the Horde and her eyes do go back to normal, it could have been a continuity error, or it could be that she's alive. She doesn't have to be completely alive, does she? As long as the coin's fully charged.
I'm not quite there yet. Matter of fact, I'm not even half dead.
Her skin looks alive as well.
Yes.
It was great the way they did that. Like, she looks so pale all the time, and now like her skin and everything looks alive. So I wonder if it's actually healed the limbs that fell off.
The makeup in this show is brilliant.
Yeah, it is. So it. I wonder how long it's going to last.
Yes, Tim, it did show her heartbeat.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, it was like a really shocking moment. It was almost like I forget what they're called, but when they resuscitate you, when your heart
Defibrillator.
Yeah, and because she's like,
yeah, it was, and she's like, well, gasping as well. It's like she's forgotten how to breathe because she hasn't needed to, and all of a sudden, it's like,
oh, go ahead, please. I'm sorry.
It's like she's actually functioning. She doesn't just look alive. It's like, you know, the body's actually working again, and the fact that he said it's recharged, that implies that the charge is going to run out and she will start to deteriorate again. So it's not a permanent thing. She's not actually alive, but at the moment, her body's behaving as though it's alive.
And what do we worry about Wednesday here? He keeps his word.
Yeah, true. He didn't lie to her.
Fuck off.
Yeah.
You know, he keeps his word to the letter of his word, but he keeps his word. He you know, I that's exactly what he does there. It's like, yeah, I'll you know, this will make you come out. And the sacrifices. We have to go over the sacrifices really quick, and then we need to ask everybody to jump over to Johnny's channel.
Yes. One thing Forrest's mentioned, an editing fail. I'm not sure if you were in the chat for that one or if you've watched the previous one, but there's a whole thing when in that scene where they're traveling through the Horde. There's other stuff going on. If you get the chance to rewatch it and slow it down and try and watch it frame by frame, you'll see what I mean. and I did show a picture of it on the previous stream as well, because I've managed to catch it on the screen. But I think it was deliberate, because there's other stuff going on there.
And I have my own theory, which you can hear about on episode 2 as well.
Mm-hmm. So the sacrifices, obviously we mentioned the cow.
And then oh my gosh.
The library.
I almost cried.
Oh, so it is sad though. And did you notice that incarnation, his eyes were gone? That incarnation of Argus that was like slumped on the table. He had no eyes. Just a bit weird. Obviously, we didn't see the face in the previous one, but it did make me think how, you know, they've said that this has happened multiple times, and obviously they don't go through all of his previous incarnations. What if all of the previous ones don't have any eyes, because those are the extra eyes that are on the current Argus's body, because it says that he doesn't have the sight but the memories. So perhaps that's what those are. But it might not even be remotely relevant, but it was just a thing that I thought that made no sense. So yeah, this sacrifice was the library. So it doesn't have to be like a blood sacrifice, which is what nearly all of any sort of sacrifices that we've seen so far have been.
I mean, when you think about it, the life of one cow, who was a divine human being, what is that compared to the Library of Alexandria? Like, it was like, I knew what was going to happen. It's like watching a car wreck. Like, I knew what was going to happen. The minute she lit that cigarette, I knew what was going to happen. And still I'm watching it like, oh, please don't, please don't, please don't, please don't.
Yeah. But it was a memory as well. It wasn't real as such. When they first go they first go in there, and she says, "Where are we?" Wednesday says it's a field. Well, it's a memory of a field. So yeah, it is just a memory. But we were talking about party tricks, which actually links in quite well as well, because Wednesday again is kind of competing with Laura, saying about how you don't want Shadow, and his party trick is talking about things that he knows about her.
Yeah.
And talks to her about the last time she was in a library. And it doesn't freak her out. She's kind of like, you might know stories about me, but that doesn't mean you know me. And but I think he does, probably at the moment, better than she knows herself. How he's kind of pointing out that what she really wants, and how she's kind of doing things for herself rather than for Shadow. And
that's the real question. Is Laura doing what she wants for Shadow? Or is Laura doing what she wants for herself? Like, and Wednesday really throws this into, he throws that hat in the ring. But it really makes you, as the viewer, question.
Yeah. And it's perhaps going to take sort of someone pointing this out to her to make her realise that as well. So far, she doesn't think that she's kind of doing anything for selfish reasons. But possibly she's going to think that he's got a point now after kind of going through all this. At the time when he says he's telling her this, she's kind of like, well, you know stories about me. That doesn't mean you know me. And he's saying, oh, but I do. And I think once she's kind of considered and reflected on it, she might kind of go, actually, he's partly right, kind of right. Because he says you don't want shadow, you just want to feel. And he's talking about feeling like when she was fighting the people on the train, and he was saying that Shadow's scared of her now. And he says, you're not the girl he fell in love with anymore.
He fell in love with a girl who tried to kill herself with bug spray.
And it's very much not her now. She's dead for a start, but like she's also very powerful. You think sort of the strength and stuff that she has at the moment, and yeah, you can see why Shadow's afraid of her. It's not like they can just forget it all and carry on with life as it was before he went to prison, because there's no kind of happy ending there. I think it's kind of what Wednesday was saying. He's saying, what's the point? What's the end game of it? And she's going to realise from that there isn't one. That I think she's probably going to have a bit of an epiphany and be like, actually, why am I doing this? What's the point? What am I going to get out of it?
Right.
And I think her initial thought, now that the coin's been recharged, is that she wants to go and find Shadow. That's going to be like, right, I'm going to go and find Shadow. And I think she'll get to the point where she'll be like, maybe I should go to New Orleans. And she will change her mind, and she'll go to New Orleans and meet up with Mad Sweeney. Because I still think there's going to be a romance of sorts between them. And I think that's going to kind of get her to maybe drop Shadow such for a time at least. And that's going to be good because Wednesday wants her out of the way. So I can see them doing it that way to kind of, because they can have like a little side plot with Laura and Sweeney.
Wednesday is the great manipulator. Wednesday is the great manipulator.
He is. But yeah, they can have like a whole little side plot thing going on while there's other parts of the book story that neither of them are really involved in.
Good night, Forrest. Oh, Forrest said he has to go to bed.
Oh, bye.
Forrest can be either gender. Anyway, good night.
I can't. Oh, the picture's a dragon, so yeah. Oh, apparently there's other lives going on right now as well. I noticed. Yeah, Johnny's started his. But, yeah. Are there any scenes that we haven't really discussed? I'm just having a quick look at my notes. I think we have actually covered everything.
Yes, I do believe we have. So you over in the UK, you don't get to watch the preview for the next episode.
It doesn't come up on Amazon Prime for me. However, I have watched it because I deliberately went and found it on YouTube.
Nice.
Because I can't get enough. Yes. Also, when I was at Comic-Con at the weekend, they had a big screen as you go in, and there was an American Gods promo, and there were a few little clips. There was no dialogue or anything at all, but there were quite a few clips that I hadn't seen. So this it doesn't really hint to any particular storylines or anything. But it was just like a few little snippets, and I was like, I've not seen that in anything. So,
any thoughts on the trailer for next week? Any thoughts on the trailer for next week?
Is Anansi going to try and go to the other side? We see him meeting up with Bilquis and asking, what is it that the new gods have to offer? It might be a bluff in that it's going to be looking like he's going over to their side, but actually it could be him trying to save Bilquis as such and get her back onto their side, when he's going to say, well, what have they done for you? Now what can we do for you? I don't think it's necessarily as it appears to be.
I don't think anything involving Nancy is ever what it appears to be.
No, I think they've deliberately misled us with that.
Yeah.
I think it's more going to be about trying to get Bilquis back.
Do you know the name for the next episode?
I don't know the name of it. What is it?
The Greatest Story Ever Told.
Okay.
Are you familiar with the reference?
Vaguely.
It's musical. I think it's musical. It's about the birth of Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if that figures in. Wonder if we might see 1 or 10 Jesuses.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. The thing is, because we've already had the whole loads of Jesuses, will they do it again?
Is that like a parliament of rooks or a gaggle of geese? It's a gloat of Jesuses.
Oh, what would the term be? You'd have to think of I don't know. There's probably never been a collective noun for Jesus.
By the way, Johnny pointed out to me today that a group of ferrets is called a. Oh gosh, it was really clever too, and I'm not forgetting, or I'm not remembering. I'm quite obviously forgetting. A business of ferrets.
I like that. Well, I keep pet rats. The collective noun for rats is a mischief. A mischief of
Rats smell a lot better than ferrets. Ferrets stink.
Oh God, yes. Ferrets smell like death. Yeah, rats don't have scent glands. That's why they don't stink.
Tom Hollis has a communion of Jesuses.
That is a brilliant one. Oh.
That's yeah.
I can't think of a better one than that.
Very brilliant. I don't think it'd be a gloat of Jesuses. I think it'd be like a gloat of fundamentalist pastors.
Yeah. I used to know loads of funny collective nouns, and I can't think of any of the rest of them now. Like just really odd ones. So yeah, a mischief of rats is the best I can.
I do a mischief of rats. I like that. I was not familiar with that.
It's not something most people would be familiar with, I suppose.
Do you know there's no collective term for foxes?
Oh.
Because they're solitary. They don't.
Kind of. I mean, not when they're babies.
Right.
So we have like a family of foxes that live over the back at the back of our back garden. It's like not part of our garden. It's just like, but the cubs stay around with the mum for quite a long time. Like they're nearly the same size as her before they go off.
Right, but there's once they're adults, they won't.
Yeah.
They're very solitary. It's just like most serpents. Most serpents are solitary. Your one exception would be a viper. Which group of vipers would be called a nest?
Yeah, it would be a nest, wouldn't it? I want to see if one exists now. Collective.
Well, Peter Griffin says that he had a boa that would not eat white rats. It's kind of interesting.
That's really weird. A skulk of foxes.
A skulk?
A skulk. That's awesome.
Yeah, that would be kind of fitting.
Yeah.
I've known a fox or two in my day.
Hmm?
I've known a fox or two in my day, or people who have that as their totem animal. All right, so final thoughts on this episode.
Interesting. Change from the books. Again, same with the last one. Although they're doing things differently, I like what they're doing. And I like that we can't really guess a lot of the stuff that they're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
It makes it more interesting because if you've read a book of something and a series is made of it and it's completely true to the book, there's not a lot of surprise in there. Like, it doesn't make it any less enjoyable, but it's really nice to have the kind of unknown. It makes it more exciting. Plus the fact that we can't binge this. You know, there's the anticipation each week. It makes it more exciting, like what's going to happen. And there's not really a lot given away in the trailer. So
yeah, not only are you not allowed to, but you literally can't.
Yeah. I mean, I behaved myself with Battlestar. I've never watched any ahead with that, but it's like I could if I really wanted to, but with this, you just can't. There's no way you can do it because it's not even out yet, and it is interesting because everything is speculation about how certain plot lines are gonna work out and when are certain things from the book going to come into it, if they're going to come into it. Characters from the books, are they going to come into it, or are they being merged with another character, or have they been written out of the show completely? It makes it all a lot more interesting for me,
right?
Because it's making me think.
Yeah, agreed. You have any predictions for next week?
Ooh. I think that Laura will have, like she's probably driving a car and being at quite a literal crossroads. One way Shadow, one way's New Orleans. And she's going to be sitting there like, which way?
Oh, good.
And another road trip with Shadow and Wednesday. They're off to somewhere else to do something else. But we don't know what yet. Because obviously they were reunited right at the end of the episode, so.
Yeah.
What about you?
I think next week we will see 2 new gods.
2.
I feel like we've had 2 or 3 every episode this season. Or gods are anthropomorphic personifications. I have a feeling we're going to see some sort of death god next week.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it be Nergal or Hades or another car, because cars are death gods in their own way.
Hades would be an interesting one.
I think we keep seeing Hades. That's my theory about the unnamed god. If you're a book reader, I think it's Hades, but No, I think we'll see another. I think we'll see 2 new gods, and I think one of them is going to be a death god.
Okay. Imagination Realm says Laura is a death god.
Hmm.
Possibly. Bilquis asked her if she was
Yeah.
when they met. She said
Yeah.
she specifically said, "Are you the like Norwegian goddess of death or something like that?"
Right.
Um.
Even though she's from Cornwall.
Peter Griffin. Want to say Baron Samedi. Don't know if he's the devil.
No, and if you see Baron Samedi, my prediction, I mean, right there, that's Death God.
Yeah. He says if he's the devil or the Haitian voodoo god, he wouldn't be the devil because that's a Christian thing. But Matt Sweeney refers to him as a devil. I don't think he means in the literal sense. I mean, I think he means a devil as in a trickster type. But I think it will be like the traditional Haitian version, hence why he's in New Orleans, because there's a lot of.
And if he does not have a top hat, I am going to be so phenomenally disappointed.
Oh, he's got to look the part, hasn't he?
Yeah.
I could even see him doing something like actually, having some sort of like voodoo type shop, like selling stuff and playing the part of like a voodoo practitioner, very tongue in cheek.
Yeah.
Like,
and then he's like, oh, this is a bunch of rye.
yeah. And he's just doing it because it entertains him, because he's like, oh, people are buying all this shit that means nothing, but they don't know they're buying it from the real thing. I can totally see that being a.
Oh, I would love that. Oh my gosh, I would love that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely. That would be awesome. Oh, Peter Griffin's mentioned, yeah, Papa Legba from American Horror Story. Yeah, it was in Coven.
Bron Holler says her youngest son dressed up as Baron Samedi for school, dressed as your favorite superhero day.
Why not? Not quite a
Brilliant.
superhero, but
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. What ranking do you give this episode?
oh, I will give it 8.5.
Really?
I don't know. Oh no, maybe a bit more than that. Maybe a 9. 9 hints at hentai out of 10.
Ooh. Nice. 9 is brilliant.
If anyone else wants to give a funny ranking, do feel free.
Yes, please drop it in the chat if you have a ranking, just a number and a reference. I am going to give this episode 9.2 Valkyrie Cadillacs.
I like that one.
9.2 Valkyrie Cadillacs that out of 10 that Wagner should have been playing. By the way, one thing I would like to touch on before we head out, the soundtrack on this series is just so phenomenally brilliant. Like, don't get me wrong, I love the scoring in Game of Thrones, but I don't feel weird doing episode track breakdowns with Game of Thrones. Like, I would feel weird doing it with this show because this soundtrack is put together so well.
Peter Griffin gives it 7.5. But 7.5 what? It can't just be a number. It has to be something.
Yeah, it's got to be something, Peter. Come on, you're a cheeky little bugger.
Does Peter come in on the... Peter, have you been in the chat on the Cylon Johns before as well?
I believe he has once or
I have
twice.
a feeling I've seen you say, in which case you'd get this whole silly ranking thing, because that's kind of how it started, wasn't it? We started doing it on that.
Speaking of which, Cylon Johns will be coming up Friday. If you're still here and you're looking for something awesome to do, jump over to Johnny Be Crazy's channel. He's talking with Gemma from Secrets of the Citadel and JR from Geek Chat 1 and Lauren's Corner about the Grey Rat conspiracy.
Mm-hmm.
Brown Holler gives this episode 9 out of 10 ravens.
Imagination Realm 8 Laura Deathflies means something.
Imagination Realm. Okay, I'm gonna look into this because you're really. This is interesting that you keep picking up on this fly thing. I really am going to look into this, and thank you for giving me something to occupy all of my free time that I have. But all of you, thank you for coming out. We're gonna pop off of here. Some of our friends are streaming right now.
I think is there an episode? Is Mackenzie got an episode club?
Yeah, an episode club will be on at 8:30 Eastern ish. Probably a bit later. I'm going to imagine that Johnny's stream is going to run a bit longer than that, but we will see. Thank you for coming out. Please come out next week for Believe, episode 4. The greatest story ever told. I am very much looking forward to this episode. And Amy, do you have anything to say before we pop out?
No. Peter's added 7.5 8-legged horses. What's his ranking? I like that.
Nice.
Oh, and Imagination Realm has a new obsession. Read the books.
Yeah, books.
Read it. Well, I say books. Book. It's one book. It's just a very. It's a chunky book. You've got it up there somewhere. Mine's kicking around in here somewhere as well. But yeah, you'll enjoy the book. But and it might sort of tell you a few things about the show as well.
Yeah, and it might totally fuck you up like it's fucking the two of us up because we don't know what's going to happen next.
That's what makes it fun, though.
But I do have to say, if you have a dusty car, please put "Wash Me" on the back of it.
That wasn't dusty, it was dirty. That was like mud, properly muddy.
All right, so what should we say before we head out?
Believe.
Believe.
And we'll see you next week. Bye.
And we will see you next week.